So here is the answer. Research methods are nothing but they are similar to skills achieved in one's profession for obtaining best outcome out of their practice. So, if you want to conduct an experiment, what you will do, you will take all precautions, and follow the manual, and then as per the steps given in the manual, you will proceed. But there are certain precautions to be taken. For example, if you want to note a water level, skills. Evaluation of the steps over a long period of time, tested and developed, and were made available for you to test your effectiveness of practice. So there are certain steps to be followed. So these steps are developed over a period of time, a long period of time. Several people earlier have tested them and have given these methods or these steps. So when you want to investigate something new, a similar systematic approach of your study is required before it is accepted and its outcome is adopted by the professional community. So when you are going to carry out research, the outcome will be published and for the benefit of the professional community, industry or professional community. So when you place it before them and before they accept, they will see whether you have followed the systematic steps or not. So these are the. So what is the difference between research methodology and research methods? Now, research methods can be put in the following groups. What are they? Methods which are concerned with the collection or acquisition of data used whether the data is already available or not sufficient to arrive at the required solution. Now there are two types of data here. One is called the primary data and the second is the secondary data. Primary data is that data which you collect by yourself. Secondary data is that data which is already available at some place and you approach that agency or organization or individual to support you with that data. That means you borrow the data. So all that borrowed data is called as the secondary data. So for collecting that secondary data or for gathering the price, there must be certain methods. So all those methods which are concerned with the data collection are one group. Then once you get the data, you have to analyze them. So the second group of methods are mathematical or statistical techniques used for establishing the relationships between the data and the unknowns. See, in any problem, in any research problem, there is an outcome. There is a behavior which you normally observe. And you are supposed to give substantiate justification for the occurrence of that particular phenomena. So you have certain data, you have certain observation. So you have to link these two. So to link these two, you have to carry out certain analysis for which you have to follow certain mathematical methods or statistical techniques. So the second method is the mathematical and statistical technique. Then methods used to evaluate the accuracy of the results obtained. Now, you have obtained the results. So first you have followed certain methods to collect the data. Authentic steps you have followed. Then you have followed standardized methods, either mathematical or statistical, and you got a result. Now it is up to the other people to accept it or not. When they will accept it, when they will agree with your findings. When you say that, your findings are correct. So you have to give justification. So that means you have to evaluate, self-evaluate the accuracy of the result. So there are other methods by which you put your results, you put your findings to test. So that is the third one. So data collection or acquisition, analysis, validation. So these are the three groups. One is data collection, the second is data analysis, and the third is validation or evaluation of results. Okay. Now, what is research methodology? So research methodology is a way to systematically solve a problem. No, it is not enough that you have certain tools. You have to properly use those tools in a systematic manner, in a defined way. So there are a number of steps which are to be followed in a particular order. You cannot deviate that order. Suppose I have given you, you follow these steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up to 10 in this order to get some output or some result. You cannot say that I will start with the fourth step and then I will do this first step second. So the changing of order is not permitted. So in the same way, whenever you have tools, you have to use those tools in a particular manner, in a particular methodology, in a particular order, sequential order. So there must be a way to systematically solve a problem. Now, research methodology can be understood as a science of studying how research is done scientifically. See, anything can be done, but scientifically doing the research is what is known as research methodology. Now, this research methodology involves the formulation of various steps. As I told, there are certain steps to be adopted by a researcher in studying the research problem with the logic behind them. See, first of all, when we are doing a research means you have to identify the research problem and then identify the techniques or tools to be followed, adopted methodology, and then analyze and then present. So these are the sequential steps. So in each and every step, there is a logic behind it. So you must understand and you must follow that logic. So therefore, what is to be done by a researcher? What before you want to carry out research? So what are the things as a researcher you must know? So the question is, what are the various aspects that are required to be known by a researcher? So for this question, you can, and the answer for this question is, first of all, how to, this researcher should know how to develop certain indices or tests. See, your entire research involves in certain numbers, numericals, digits, or methodology or procedure. So you must know what are the indexes to be used and what tests are to be conducted. So as a researcher, the first and foremost thing you should know is as how to develop these indices and how to carry out the tests. Then how to calculate the mean, mode, median, or the standard deviation or chi-square. What are these things? These are all the statistical procedures. See, unless otherwise you have a standard approved analysis, your research is not validated. So to validate your research or to analyze your results, there must be certain statistical tools. See, the mean, mode, median, all these things, standard deviation, they tell about the variation of a particular parameter, how it is varying, what is the mean, what is the standard deviation. This is all required. And lastly, chi-square. Chi-square is what? Chi-square is a test. It gives you the betterness of a regression. Suppose you have fitted a curve between the independent variable and the dependent variable. So whether your curve fitting is correct or not, so that has to be tested. So that is done with the help of the so-called chi-square test. So we'll come to know what is this chi-square test at a later time. How to apply a particular research technique, that means mathematical modeling or computer simulation or fabrication of equipment. So that is the technique. So how to apply a particular, whether you, for a problem, is it appropriate to model it in the laboratory, or is it better to go to the field and collect data, or go to the basics of the theory behind the concept or the system and identify governing equations and formulate a problem, an equation to be solved. So that equation may be a partial differential equation or an ordinary differential equation. So if it is a differential equation, how to solve it, which technique is appropriate. It all depends upon the boundary conditions that are available and the initial conditions that are available. So therefore, you must know what particular things are to be applied. Now, which of these methods are relevant and needed to understand the assumptions underlying various techniques? Now, there are several methods, mathematical methods, statistical methods, or simulation models, etc., etc. Now, each and every method will have certain assumptions, because research is an ever and unending process. It is continuous. So there must be some assumption involved in applying the solution or the equation available under certain circumstances. So to what extent your assumptions are valid, so that you must understand. Thus, it is necessary for the researcher to design the research problem, following a specific methodology. Now, research methodology has many dimensions, and the research methods do constitute a part of the research methodology. Now, what is it? How to do this? Already I have. One minute. So, the application of research methodology enable you to increase the understanding in their own profession and to advance the professional knowledge base. Then, application of research methodology will enable individuals to strengthen and advance their own profession. Application of research methodology will enable anyone to be an efficient service provider in any field of profession. As a matter of fact, the validity of your findings entirely depends upon the soundness of the research methods and the procedures adopted by you. So, if your research procedures are strong enough, then your outcome will be acceptable. So, as a matter of fact, the validity of your findings entirely depends upon the soundness of your adopted methodology. Now, you are a researcher. So, you find yourself as a researcher, but someone will look you in a different perspective. So, there are applications of research. So, a researcher can be viewed in any manner. A researcher can be viewed as a service provider. So I look you are a researcher, and I expect some service from you. Then a researcher can be viewed as service administrator, manager, and a planner. Suppose if you are working in an organization, so the organization will have some problems, and they have hired you. Or industry or institution will look forward in yourself how best you can provide an administrative solution, how best you can give a managerial solution, and how best you can plan a particular thing. So, a researcher can be viewed as a service provider, as an administrator, or as a consumer, and as a professional. So, there are four different perspectives in which a researcher can be viewed. Now, though it is impossible to list all the issues in every discipline, this framework can be applied to most disciplines and situations in the humanities and social sciences. You should be able to use this to identify from the viewpoint of the above perspectives the possible issues in your own academic field where the research techniques can be used. Now, what I'm going to tell here is that the next slides which I'm going to show you will provide certain information which basically are more oriented towards humanities and social sciences. But the same thing you can adopt for your discipline also. For example, see, these are the four things which I have told. As a service provider, are you able to see this one in the blocks? The service provider, or shall I increase the font size? The service provider, and then the administrator, the consumer, and the professional. So, in case of each, there are certain questions for which the answers are sought. For example, I'll read these questions. Now, if you are looked as a service provider by someone, you are a researcher, but you are viewed as a service provider. So, as a service provider, you are supposed to provide answers to the following questions. How many people are using this service or the product? Then, why do some people use the concept or product while others do not? Okay. Then, how effective is the service product? Then, how can the service product be improved? Which type of people use or do not use the service or product? Then, how satisfied or dissatisfied are the consumers of the service or product? What are the problems with the service or product? You see, you can get an idea. You are a service provider, but when you do certain research and give a product, so the people who are going to receive or take the product, who are called as the stakeholders, so they look into these things, and your product or your service or you yourself have to provide answers to these questions. What are these? Again, I am repeating. How many people are using this one? So, by understanding by getting an answer to this question, you will be able to provide a solution in that direction. If suppose 1,000 people are using that service or product, why can't I get a more number of people attracted towards this product? So that means certain improvement is required. So the same thing you can adapt to your field of specialization, right? Why do the service people use this service? Why do some people use this, and why not some others don't use it? So why others are not using? Like for example, you take the elections. Now in elections, what is happening? Some people prefer a particular party. Some other people will prefer another party. That means those who are now preferring a second party, obviously they are not liking the first party due to certain reasons. So why they are not accepting the first party? So in the same way, there is a product or there is a service. People are interested in the service, and certain people are not interested. So those who are not interested, why? So an answer to that, providing a solution, an answer to that question will improve the quality of the product and attract more people to get acceptance. Then, how efficient is the service or the product? How can the service or product be improved? So these are the questions. Similarly, as an administrator, to answer, you are supposed to provide answers to these questions, such as what are the needs of the community? Then what types of service, product are needed by the community? How many service? One minute, it's not here.
Service providers are needed.
Service products are needed. Then
Providers, sir.
what are the training needs of the staff? How many cases can a worker handle in a day? 1 minute. How can the effectiveness of each worker be evaluated? So you can see, as an administrator, you are supposed to provide an answers. So like that, I am just skipping these two things. You can go through it. So what are the various questions that are to be answered as a researcher when he is viewed as a consumer? Suppose I ask you. So these are the things to be specified. These answers to these are the questions, and answers to these are required. Suppose I put you a question. As an administrator, researcher as an administrator, list down the questions to which the answers are to be required, to be provided by the concerned researcher. So these are. So like that, this about the status of a researcher in the perspective of different people. Now, the next thing I will proceed is to the research process, and then the characteristics and the requirements. This is very important again. The research process. What are the characteristics and requirements? Now, earlier we had defined what is a research and all. And so, in a nutshell, what we can say is that it is clear that research is a process for collecting and analyzing and interpreting the information to answer the questions. There are three things I told you. Methods or groups. One is data collection, then the mathematical or statistical techniques, and the third is the validation. So, or evaluation. So So, if you are doing research means, basically these three are to be carried out. Now, to qualify as a research, the process must have certain characteristics. Okay? If you are to be called as a graduate engineer, you should go through certain procedures. You have to clear certain examinations, and you have to conduct a project, and you have to get an internship training. So these are all the things that are required. So in the same way, to qualify as a research, the process must have certain characteristics. It must be, as far as possible, be controlled. Now here you will see controlled, rigorous, systematic, valid, verifiable, empirical, and critical. So, okay. So, what are the characteristics of a research? These are the characteristics: control, rigorous, systematic, valid and verifiable, empirical and critical. Okay, let us see. What is meant by controlled? Outcome normally affected by several factors. See, when you start with your research, you only have the problem, you don't have a solution. And ultimately, when you complete your research, you will get with an answer. Now, that is the outcome. But the outcome depends upon several factors. What are those factors? Behavior of systems and their outcome rarely depend on one-to-one relationship. You cannot really say that there is one cause and one effect. There may be one effect, but there may be several causes. Similarly, there may be one cause and there may be several effects. So, you cannot say that there is one-to-one relationship. Multiplicity of relationships and interacting factors govern many processes. This is very clear in all systems, especially in our engineering systems. In a study of cause and effect relationships, it is important to be able to link the effects with the cause and vice versa. That is what we do in research. In the study of causation, the establishment of this linkage is essential. However, in practice, particularly in social sciences, it is extremely difficult and often impossible to make the link. Because in social sciences and humanities, it all depends upon individual's preference or perception, likings, and then socio-economic conditions and several other constraints. So as a result, it will be very difficult to link the cause and effect in one-to-one pattern. So, in the study of causation, the establishment of this linkage is essential, and in practice, particularly in social sciences, it is very difficult. Control. Control can be achieved to a large extent in the physical sciences, as most of the research is done, and the relationship between the parameters or variables with respect to cause and effect can be identified and well established. So the point is very clear. So you are conducting the experiment. So you can choose the range of input parameters, or if you are generating a mathematical model, it is further simple. You can give the range of parameters. So in engineering and sciences, it is very easy. In social sciences, it is extremely difficult as research is carried out on issues relating to human beings. That is what I told. Human beings living in a society where such controls are impossible. Therefore, in the social sciences, as you cannot control external factors, you attempt to quantify their impact. So that is the reason why we depend upon certain quantification. What we do is in human sciences and management, what we do is for a particular issue, we collect the data in the form of a questionnaire. Like, for example, good, bad, or better, good, bad, worse, like that. So we'll give some weightages. So, say for example, water quality we are thinking. So water quality may be extremely good, good, or fair, or medium, or poor, like that. So we'll give a weightage 5. So we'll ask the people, hey, do you think that this particular product is very good? Is it working excellent? Or it's working is good, or satisfactory, or not satisfactory? So if suppose person says that it is good, then okay, we'll note it as good and we give a weightage of 4. So what we are doing is we are getting a qualitative answer: excellent, good, satisfactory, not satisfactory, and then we are converting it to a quantity: 5, 4, 3, 2, like that. So what we do in social sciences is quantifying the thing is done more. Then I told that research should be controlled and then rigorous. What is rigorous? Now, when you are doing research, you cannot follow shortcuts. You can make certain assumptions, but you cannot take them for granted. So you have to establish that the assumption is really valid. So rigorous means procedures followed to be scrupulous, confirmed of their relevance, appropriateness, and justification. So when you are doing the experiment means you are doing the experiment with all precaution, with all controls, and with all necessary equipment that are required to support your experiment. It is not that in the absence of this particular equipment, a parameter cannot be measured, so I am assuming it something like that. So that is not allowed. So whatever you are doing, you can simplify it, but not shortcut for method cannot be followed. So the meaning of scrupulous means you should leave no stone unturned. So but the only thing is degree of rigorousness vary with respect to physical and social sciences and within social sciences. In engineering and sciences, this rigorousness is more. So because we have all things at our control, we can control the parameters. So therefore, the engineering and science research is more rigorous than the humanities and social sciences. Then the next one is systematic. The systematic is to be followed in all in all disciplines, whether it is engineering or science or humanities or social sciences. So procedures adopted to follow a certain logical sequence. The different steps cannot be taken in a haphazard way. Some procedures must follow others. As I told, if I have given you 10 steps to be followed, you have to follow in that order only. You cannot take the 4th step as a first step and then 2nd step or 3rd step as a 2nd step, like that. You cannot change the order. Then valid and verifiable. This always requires. It implies that whatever conclusions are made to be correct and can be verified later. So one has to verify. One has to stand for test. So your research outcome can be tested at any time. Then the next is empirical. Conclusions drawn are based upon hard evidence gathered from information collected from real life experiences or observations. Now, what is empirical? Most of the relationships are based on empirical observations. That means you have certain field data. So you go through that field data. You have certain mathematical knowledge regarding the behavior between a set of dependent variables, set of independent variables and a dependent variable. So what we do is we formulate an equation between the dependent variable and the set of independent variables. And normally when we formulate an equation, there will be certain constants that are involved. So those constants you will try to evaluate using the observed data, observed input parameters and output. So this is what is called as an empirical relationship. For example, rainfall runoff. So there is a relationship between rainfall and runoff. There are equations. So those equations. Similarly, if you consider your Marig's, not Marig's formula, Kennedy's formula, or Lacey's formula. So all these formulae, they are developed based on the empirical results. So people have conducted experiments, have observed the field canals, and then they have come out the relationship between the velocity and some other parameters. So that is an empirical relationship. So those constants are given, different constants are given for different regions. So this is what is known as an empirical relationship. So once you generate a solution, you have to draw your conclusions based on the hard evidence gathered from information collected from real life experiences or observations. That is field experiences or field observations. Then critical. Of the procedures used and the methods employed is crucial to a research inquiry. The process of investigation must be followed foolproof and free from any drawbacks. The process adopted and the procedures used must be able to withstand critical scrutiny. So these are the three, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 characteristics. So what are the characteristics? 6 characteristics of research. So these are the 6 characteristics. You have to explain these things. Now, types of research. Already I have discussed about the types of research, but let us once again discuss in a different way. One minute. So types of research can be looked in from 3 different perspectives. See, a researcher is looked in 4 different perspectives. One, as a service provider. Second, as an administrator. Third, as a consumer. Fourth, as a professional. So in the same way, your research can be viewed in 3 different perspectives. One is based upon the application of your findings. Then based upon the objectives of your study. And thirdly, based upon the mode of inquiry you have used in conducting the study. So you have done the research, but what is the you have done the research? Have you carried out your research so as to have certain application for the solution, for the problem? Or have you conducted your research keeping certain objectives in your mind? Or how you have done your research? What methods you have followed? What modes of inquiry you have done? So depending upon these three perspectives, the quality of your research and the applicability of the research will change. Classification based on these three perspectives is not mutually exclusive. That means what? And you have taken up the study, and also you may plan to get your solution to have certain application. So your study can be application oriented with certain predefined objectives. Similarly, your research is an application oriented research by following certain methods of inquiry. So a particular research can have all these things. Project classified as a pure or applied research from perspective of application as descriptive, correlational, explanatory or exploratory from perspective of objectives, and as qualitative or quantitative from perspective of inquiry mode. So here is a list of types of research with respect to these three perspectives. Now, from the perspective of application, your research can be classified as a pure research or as an applied research. I already explained to you what is meant by a pure research and what is an applied research. So, from the perspective of application, research, or it can be an applied research. Then it can be classified as descriptive or correlational or explanatory or exploratory from the perspective of objectives. That means your objective of conducting the research is maybe just to describe a process or to correlate between two things or to explain what is happening or to probe, explore the reasons for what has happened. So these are all the objective orientation, perspective of objective. Or your research can be either a qualitative research or quantitative research based upon your mode of inquiry. So this is the flow chart which gives you the types of research from the viewpoint of application, objectives, and inquiry mode. So, in the viewpoint of application research or an applied research. From the viewpoint of objectives, it can be descriptive or explanatory, exploratory, correlational, or explanatory. Similarly, from the inquiry mode, it can be quantitative or qualitative. Now, I will stop here for 5 minutes or 10 minutes and then we'll come back. Now, meanwhile, what I will do is, up to what I have told so far and what I am going to tell up to this. I'm going to send you the PDF part. Okay. So, చూస్తాను. So as per application, you can view your research either as a pure research or applied research. I explained you what is pure research and what is applied research earlier. Then based on objectives, descriptive or correlational or exploratory or explanatory. Similarly, based on inquiry mode, qualitative and quantitative. Now let us look them into more detail. So, application perspective. As I told, there are two types in this. One is pure research and the other is applied research. So, developing and testing theories and hypotheses that are intellectually challenging to the researcher but may not have practical application at present time or in the future. So that means in the immediate present or immediate future may not be having any application, but they provide a platform for carrying out studies in a later stage. So they form the foundation. So they provide the basic knowledge. So that is a pure research. One minute, it is slightly. Often involves the testing of hypotheses containing very abstract and specialized concepts. Also concerned with the development, examination, verification, and refinement of research methods. You see, the examples are developing a situation-based sampling technique or developing a methodology to assess the validity of procedures. So you are establishing a by which you can get certain data or correct some or a new method of sampling or a new method of analysis or a new method of validation, calibration. So all these things may not readily have any application, but when once you use these new things which you have invented, they may give better results at a later time. So directly they are not useful, they will not give any solution, but with the help of this, you can do research in a better way. So that is the pure research. Applied research. Most of research in social science is applied. Not only social science, in science engineering also it is applied research. Research techniques, procedures and methods that form the body of research methodology are applied to the collection of information about various aspects of situation, issue, problem or phenomena. See, this is written in the perspective of social science, but we can say that applied research is more in science and engineering. So whatever you do, conduct a study, it will be having an immediate application. So therefore, most of the engineering and science researchers research can be classified as applied researches. Then, with respect to your objective, with respect to the objective, it can be either descriptive or correlational or explanatory or exploratory. So descriptive study, it attempts to describe systematically a particular situation. So in that particular situation, what has happened? So you describe it. Or you describe the problem. Or you describe a phenomena. Or a program or a service. So that means you understand the problem and you describe it. You explain the problem. May also provide information about, say, the living conditions of a community or describe attitudes towards an issue. Describe the types of services provided by an organization, the administrative structure of an organization, living standards of a certain set of people. So you can see all these things come under more or less humanities and social science studies. So your descriptive study is mostly related to social sciences. Social issues related to individuals, family, group, etc. Main purpose of such studies is to describe what is prevalent with respect to the issue or the problem under the study. So you are describing the issue. Then correlational study. Now in correlation study, your objective is to correlate between two happenings, two things. The main emphasis is to discover or establish the existence of a relationship or association or the interdependence between two or more aspects of a situation. So there is some system or something has happened. So now what you are doing is, there is some issue which causes that and there is a result from it, outcome from it. So you try to correlate. If this particular parameter is increasing, this is increasing or decreasing. So you give a correlation between two or more things. Examples in social science: impact of advertisement on sales, impact of living patterns on health hazards. Now, what are the examples in engineering? Can you tell me? Now, as a civil engineer, can you tell me a problem where it can say an explanation, a correlational thing, correlational research. Number 5, hydraulics. See, think of a problem which can be stated as a correlative problem or a correlational research. It need not be related to hydraulics. It can be any problem in civil engineering. Number 5 is not present. Number 8, hydraulics.
Yes, sir.
Number 8. There will be change in the volume. So there is a change in the there will be a strain. So this stress-strain relationship, you can correlate. You can correlate between the stress applied and the strain observed. So one is observed, and one is imparted. You are imparting. There is a particular rainfall and there is a certain amount of runoff. So what is the relationship between these two? You are correlating. You are correlating your rainfall and runoff. You are correlating between the plant growth and the nutrient or fertilizer you have used. So it is between one parameter and the influence of that parameter on the second parameter. So you must have two parameters there at least. There may be more, but at least. So you are correlating. If you increase this, whether the other thing is increasing or decreasing. If you are increasing this, whether the increase or decrease is linear or parabolic. If it is parabolic or first degree or second degree or third degree, what? So that is the correlation. Correlation means one parameter is varying and that impact is observed in another parameter and what exactly it is happening, how it is happening. So that is the correlation between two things. If you increase the surcharge, there will be a pressure bulb within the soil. So the shape of the pressure bulb. So like that, you can correlate between the one parameter and its influence on the second parameter. So that is a correlatory study. Then explanatory research. The third one is explanatory. Attempts to classify why and how there is a relationship between two aspects of a situation. So again, some examples. Why stressful living results in heart attacks? Why a decline in mortality is followed by a fertility decline? Or how the home environment affects children's level of academic achievement. So like that, in our engineering also we can explain. Now earlier we gave a correlational information. Now if we go a step further and give the exact relationship between these two and explain within certain constraints or within certain input parameters how this behavior between the independent variable and the dependent variable is varying. So that is an explanatory research. You are just not only correlating, but you are providing further explanation. So the first one is simply description, correlation, and the third one is explanation. So the degree in which you are providing information with the help of your research to a particular problem will be more and more accurate, starting from descriptive, correlatory, explanatory, and then exploratory. Exploratory means you probe into the more basics of this problem and you supply answers or information in a more better way to explain the research, the relationship between the independent variable and the dependent variable, the cause and the effect, the problem and the solution. So this is the object-oriented research. Exploratory. Object to either to explore an area where little is known or to investigate the possibilities of undertaking a particular research study. So Here I have given, you can go through it. So already I had told about this exploratory in detail. Okay, this is not required. Your third type of research is based upon mode of inquiry. So the mode of inquiry can be either structured or unstructured. Structured means the quantitative information. Unstructured means the qualitative information. You can easily understand the difference between a qualitative and quantitative. In qualitative research, you will not have any numerical numbers. Explain the relationship between two things in numerical values. Only you will say good, bad, efficient, not efficient, qualify it. Qualitative only, whereas in quantification, the exact numbers. So that is the basic difference between and quantitative. So quantitative is a structured one. Qualitative is an unstructured one. So choice between quantitative or qualitative depends upon the aim of inquiry and use of the outcome. If your outcome is to be applied and if it is to be used for a larger interest of the industry, then it should be quantitative. Or you just say that your aim is only to describe or provide certain information, it can be qualitative. So it all depends upon whether your aim of inquiry and use of outcome or like that. So these are the further explanations about the qualitative study, quantitative study. So here I have given the differences between qualitative and quantitative. So this you can go through it. So I will be stopping here today at this stage, and next Thursday we will proceed with the approaches and significance of research. Now what I will do is, for the second class I will follow the same procedure. At the middle of the class I will give the PDF file, but then in subsequent classes what I will do is, I will give you beforehand the topics which have been, the material which I am going to discuss, and all of you are supposed to prepare